Hi there, Smart Drivers. Rick with Smart Drive Test talking to you today about what driving examiners do and how to pass your road test first time. Stick around, we'll be right back with that information. Hi there, Smart Drivers. Welcome back. Talking to you today about driving examiners and passing your road test first time. There's quite a number of people here. Hall Phase is here. Hi there, Hall Phase. Katie's here from Arkansas. Michael's tuning in from Jackson, Michigan. I was going to say Mississippi, but it's not Mississippi. It's Michigan, up there in the north. And Douglas is here as well. So if you're tuning in, let us know where you're tuning in from and what class of license you're going for, because we're going to talk about driving examiners overall. This is both for CDL vehicles, motorcycles, for cars and trucks and those types of things. And I was thinking about this just as I got started here about driving instructors and the relationship the driving instructors have with driving examiners. And one of the first people that driving examiners will come back and talk to after they talk to the student is they will talk to the driving instructor. Know that. Especially if the student did something odd. And I'll give you an example of that. When I was teaching trucks here in British Columbia for air brakes in the province of British Columbia, if you don't know how to manually how to adjust a manual slack adjuster for the purposes of air brakes, it's an automatic fail on a road test. And I had a student who wasn't able to explain that to the driving examiner, and once the driving examiner figured that out, the driving examiner said to me, he couldn't explain how to adjust a manual slack adjuster, and she said it was the first time that's ever happened. I've never had that happen before. So that's what happened. So know that driving examiners are going to talk to instructors, so instructors know exactly what driving examiners do and will help you pass your road test first time. So we know what they do, so that's what we're going to do. All right, so Roman is here from Florida. Prasad, you got your test tomorrow in Vancouver. Awesome, so you're going to do great on that. Douglas is studying for his hazmat. Hazmat, for those of you who may or may not know, transportation of dangerous goods, TDG as it's sometimes called as well, but it can be called hazmat as well. Andreas, hello Andrea rather, sorry. Running is Kayla from Pickering, Ontario there near Toronto. Nur is tuning in from Alberta. Cody's here from Vancouver going for class 5. Commentary driving is good to butter them up. Yes, and I will talk about that, Douglas, as well, that running commentary for your purposes of your road test is really good, because the driving examiner doesn't have to guess what you're looking at, what you're thinking, and what you are planning to do in terms of being proactive, because on a road test and any time that you do drive, you want to be proactive, not reactive, and we'll talk more about that as well in the presentation here. Courtney from Philadelphia. My name is Courtney. I really need to learn everything there is possible. I'm a new driver. Excellent. And you are definitely in the right place, Courtney. The other thing that I would suggest for new drivers who are planning on getting a license, consider purchasing Pass Your Road Test First Time course. It's a course over at the Smart Drive Test website. Completely guaranteed that you will pass first time, and with the coupon SMART30 you can pick that up for 30% off the regular price of $37.95. So consider that as well. Jonathan, hello Jonathan. Mohammed, I'm a new driver, need more information. There you go. And yes, Ryan, good evening. Tim is here from Winnipeg, tuning in from Winnipeg. And Corey is here, Bricks for Wheels. Corey is in Winnipeg as well, and I think they're beginning to get summer. I know we're really not getting summer here. So anyway, so without further ado, bear with me here and we'll get over to the PowerPoint presentation, and we'll start working through that. All right, so we're talking about driving examiners, the people that test you, and this is a different relationship from going to high school. This is probably, for many of you, I was thinking about this today, this is probably the first experience for many of you that you are going to be tested by somebody that does not teach you, that somebody who is outside of the teaching experience, the learning experience that you have, because when you go to high school, you go to public school, you have the teacher who administers the test, or you do it in the same building, or for Americans in some states, I don't know if this is nationwide in terms of the United States, that everybody does the standardized aptitude test, the testing in high school But this is really the first time that you're going to be tested by somebody you don't know, and for many of you that can be intimidating. So what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about what their job is, and we're going to talk about what your job is, and we're going to talk about the role of the driving examiner. And oftentimes driving examiner and driving instructor is used interchangeably, but I want to clarify that examiners are different people than driving instructors. Instructors are the people that teach you how to drive. Examiners are the people that, they're the gatekeepers. They were the people that determine whether you are going to get your license or not. They're the people that determine whether your driving skills are at a high enough level for you to be given a license. And that's what driving examiners do. So don't confuse them with driving instructor. Driving instructors are different people. And that's what I'm going to talk about a little bit here. Just bear with me here. We'll get on the right page. There we go. For those of you who are new to Smart Drive Test, Smart Drive Test helps new drivers get a license, veteran drivers to remain crash-free, and CDL drivers to start a career as a truck or bus driver. And I'm Rick August. Became a licensed commercial driving instructor in 1997 as well. I did some work as a driver rehabilitation specialist. I worked with people who had experienced strokes or lost a limb and were returning to driving, and taught people how to drive with hand controls. In 2006, I graduated from the University of Melbourne with a doctorate in legal history, which is the study of policing, courts, and prisons. And my expertise is in traffic as it relates to policing, or policing as it relates to traffic. Order maintenance, it's called. And while I was at university in Australia, I drove for Greyhound and one of the regional bus lines there, the V line. So that's a picture of me when I still had hair in the early 2000s. March 2000, actually, I think it was, when I still had hair and I was driving for Greyhound. Right, I keep hitting the wrong goofy button here. Try that. There we go. As well, the other thing that I'm working on right now is I'm working on Instagram videos and YouTube story videos. And if you want to know what YouTube stories are, essentially they're the same thing as Instagram. If you watch Justin Brown, he gives a video on YouTube stories, and he was saying to himself that he had to stop saying it was Instagram. And it essentially is the same thing. They're short, 15-second videos, lots of good information. So you just go onto your mobile, go into the YouTube app in the mobile, click stories at the top here, and you'll see the stories up there. And these will give you quick, short information about getting a license, things you should be concentrating on, and those types of things. And like I said, I've been working on these. Have a look at those as well, and that'll give you more information for those of you who are working towards getting your license. All right, so the job of the driving examiner, and as I said, this can be a bit intimidating for you as a student going for your license, because you haven't met the driving examiner before. You just get in with this strange person into your car, and you've never met this person, and now you have to drive, and that can be very intimidating. And their job is simply to assess your ability to have due care and control of the vehicle in changing traffic conditions. That's what you have to do. And we know, and if you watch the video, and Corey put the video up for you on the driving task, the 6 characteristics of driving, not so much the 6 characteristics, but the 6 traits of driving, 6 variables that you have to deal with. That was what I was trying to say. The vehicle, drivers, weather, light, road, and traffic. Those variables are always changing when you're driving, and it can change within a very short period of time. You can come from a residential area into moderate traffic, into complex intersections, and out onto freeways in a very short period of time. And you have to be able to handle the vehicle in those changing traffic conditions. That's what you have to do for the purposes of a road test. And if you can do that, you're going to be successful in passing your road test. So your job is to demonstrate that you have due care and control of the vehicle and take away the examiner's right to fail you. In other words, you need to do enough stuff correctly that you won't fail. And oftentimes, many students will come back to me and say that driving examiners, oh, they said that I took my corners too wide, or I did one thing wrong. Oftentimes, that sheet that the driving examiner marks your score down on, that's not the reason you pass or fail. Driving examiners decide within a very short period of time whether you're going to pass or fail your road test, usually within a couple of minutes. Because I, too, have done evaluations for drivers, and I can tell within a few minutes whether the student is going to pass or fail his road test. After that, once the driving instructor, or the driving examiner rather, has made his or her decision that they're going to pass or fail you, they simply justify on the sheet whether you pass or fail. They find enough stuff wrong that they're going to fail you. So Your job, your first job, before you even show up for your road test, make sure you have all of your paperwork in place. You're going to need a secondary piece of ID. You're going to have to bring your license with you. And for most of you, not all of you, but most of you, you're going to need money because it costs money to take a road test. It's usually the time the fee for taking a road test is about $50, and then to administer your license it's another $50. So for most people, it's around the $100 mark. In both the United States and in Canada and other places in the world. Some people will be able to give me some more information about what it costs them to take their license and those types of things. But think about first impressions. Okay, you're going to show up and you haven't washed your hair, combed your hair, you haven't brushed your teeth, and you got ratty clothes on, you got holes in your t-shirt and those types of things. Think about first impressions, especially for some of these road tests in larger cities in New York and Philadelphia and California. Los Angeles and places like that. Some of these road tests only last 8 to 10 minutes. You have a very short period of time to make an impression on the examiner. So if you show up on time, you've got all your paperwork, you've got your money, the car is washed, the inside is clean and vacuumed, it's going to make a really good impression on the examiner, because before they even get in the vehicle, before you even move the vehicle, they're already thinking to themselves, okay, this person has some attention to detail. They've put on a nice shirt, they've combed their hair, they've shaved. For those of us who are men, I mean, some women might have to shave, but as a rule, not so much. But you've combed your hair, you've done your makeup, you're wearing sensible shoes to drive the vehicle. So they've already had a good impression of you, as opposed to if you're showing up late, you're running around, you don't have the proper ID, the car's dirty, there's fast food wrappers in the footwells up to their ankles. Driving examiners are not going to be impressed by that. So think about that part of your driving test even before you show up. Okay? Some of the myths around driving exams, and I hear driving instructors say this all the time, and I want to hurt them when they say this. Don't wear sunglasses on a road test, because driving examiners want to see your eyes move. And there's a video here about the fact that you cannot observe by simply moving your eyes. You have to move your head, your entire head, when you're driving the vehicle. So if you need sunglasses to see, if you need prescription glasses to see for the purposes of driving, bring those. Okay, wear sunglasses. I am extremely photosensitive. I have at least 2 pairs of sunglasses in the car. Know that if you need to wear sunglasses, okay? Also, don't engage in conversation. Simply not true. But I would caution you in terms of conversation at the beginning, just focus on what you're doing. If later on, once you're comfortable and the examiner starts to talk to you and those types of things, then yes, you can engage in conversations. Some people are accusatory and will say, oh, driving examiners are working to fail you. Simply not true. They simply have too many people in a day. Most driving examiners are going to do somewhere between 12 and 18 road tests a day. They're not working to fail you, okay? They're simply doing the best that they can. They're simply assessing your ability. They're trying to be as objective as possible. Unfortunately, if you haven't done the work, you're not going to be successful. They're going to know that within a few minutes. But at one and the same time, sometimes people who are fully prepared and are good drivers, something goes wrong and they can't handle the situation. If that happens, it's unfortunate, and I would suggest to you that just work to be better and go back and do it again. I know it happens and it sucks, but just go back and do it again. They won't fail you. They don't work to fail you. But driving examiners are human beings. Sometimes they have bad days, and if they have a bad day, then unfortunately, they could be miserable. Okay, examiners have a quota. That's simply not true either. The other thing is that most people, most students, 98% are successful if they take some form of driver education, whether you take driver education with an actual driving school in your local area, or you take some sort of online driver education, so you take the Pass Your Road Test first time over at the Smart Drive Test website. That will guarantee that you're about 98% certain of passing your road test, so know that. I have to speak English perfectly. No, you don't have to speak English perfectly, but you do have to understand sort of right, left. You have to be able to read traffic signs, which are symbolic for the most part. You have to have a basic understanding of English and road rules and those types of things. You don't have to have perfect English. And I had another woman who had some disabilities last week. If you do have disabilities, they're going to put a requirement on your license that you whatever that is. For example, Jen, who had a seeing disability, they knew about that. She worked with that, and the examiners knew that. So she went in and they tested her knowing that she had that disability. And Corey will put the video up for you about Jen as well. Okay? Pre-trip inspection. I cannot emphasize this enough. I've had a number of students say to me, oh, I was denied my road test because the brake light was out. If you have a brake light out on your car or the driving school car before you go in for your road test, these things are easily fixed. Fix them before you go in. And Corey will put the video for you on the pre-trip inspection. Do a pre-trip inspection on your vehicle, give it a wash, take it down to the local wash place and give it a vacuum. Here in Vernon, where I live, all the car wash places, all the vacuums are free because that's the way they get you to come in and actually get you to wash your car. So vacuum your car out, clean out all the fast food wrappers out of the footwells and those types of things. Make sure that the seat belt on the passenger side is working. Make sure the lights are working and all those types of things. Make sure you have the documentation, the registration, insurance in the car and whatnot. Do a pre-trip inspection before you go down for your road test. Okay, road signs. Know your road signs in and around the test center where you're going to be taking your license, okay? Failing to adjust your speed according to the signs is going to cause you to fail your road test. You're allowed about a 3 to 5 kilometer or 3 to 5 mile an hour tolerance in terms of the speed limit, but it's only for a few seconds. If you don't adjust your speed back to the speed limit within 5 to 10 seconds, that's going to be a fail on a road test. Lane ends. Be proactive. Don't blindly follow the other traffic, otherwise you're going to get jammed up if you're in a right-hand lane that ends and you have to merge over to the left. Stop signs. Come to a complete stop at stop signs for the purposes of your road test. School zone signs when school is in session, not so much right now in the summertime. School zone signs, and know the difference between school signs. There's one that school is in the area, and then there's the other one which is the actual speed sign where you have to reduce to either 20 miles an hour or 30 kilometers an hour. And then road markings. Know your road markings as well. Okay? Solid white lines at intersections, for example. You cannot cross lanes at solid white lines. If you do that enough times, it will cause you to fail on a road test. Alright? Slow speed maneuvers. If the examiner gets in the vehicle with you in the first 2 or 3 minutes, you're being overly cautious, you're not driving the speed limit, you're not getting the vehicle up to speed, you're not taking gaps because you're just not familiar with the vehicle and haven't had enough practice, the driving examiners are going to know this very quickly and they're not going to be impressed, and unfortunately you're not going to be successful. So practice your slow speed maneuvers, and Corey will put the video up for you on learning to drive. Parking, 3-point turn, and I can tell you for most road tests anywhere in the world, and some people will say this and they've come on the channel and they've said, oh, they don't do parallel parking anymore. I can guarantee anywhere in the world, parallel parking is almost a certainty on most road tests. Even in Ohio, where they have the Ohio maneuverability test, you must be able to parallel park. And so parallel parking, 3-point turn, and reverse stall parking. Those are the 3 absolutes on a road test. I would have those 3 maneuvers down for the purposes of a road test because you will be required to do those to be successful in passing your road test. And I'll say this about a road test. 7/8 of the road test is in a forward motion. 1/8, the 3-point turn, reverse stall parking, parallel parking, are reversing. Those are the maneuvers that give students the most grief. But if you do those well, if you do the reverse stall parking, their parallel parking, and the 3-point turn, you do those well, you're going to improve your overall driving. So spend some time on those and do the work. Okay, lane positioning, move to the right after turning left. So you make a left-hand turn, you have to move over to the right-hand lane as soon as the vehicle straightens out, and do all of the correct procedures for that. So when you're turning on multi-lane roads, left lane to left lane and right lane to right lane, and I've got some dash cam footage here of I was turning right onto a road and this elderly gentleman was making a left-hand turn and he just drifted over to the right. So you have to pay attention to that as well. And I'll give you strategies and techniques you can put in place that will keep you safe while you're driving. Okay, merging, lane changing, moving, all of this is things that you need to do for the purposes of your road test and being successful. Communicating, knowing how to do this, move the vehicle laterally, you got a shoulder check every time, and communicating with other traffic. And the way that we communicate with other traffic, lights, signals, horns, but you want to use the horn sparingly, eye contact, hand gestures if it's pedestrians or something like that, and then the position of your vehicle on the roadway. All of this communicates to other road users what we're doing for the purposes of a road test, and you have to be able to do that competently for the purposes of passing your road test. So driving examiners assess competency. Can you do it? And they do assign certain demerit points, But like I said, the test sheet doesn't really matter too much. They decide in a very short period of time whether you're going to pass or fail or not. And once they decide whether you pass or fail, they simply justify it on the sheet. In some situations, not a whole lot of situations, we can talk a little bit more about this in question and answer period, but they are kind of on the fence at some point, and they're simply waiting to later in the road test whether you did enough things right or enough things wrong, or they just feel that yes, overall. So say for example, you had a really good drive and you have good control of the vehicle, but you bumped the curb when you're doing your parallel park. Some examiners might just let that go, right, and say, oh, okay, you bumped the curb, but you know, we assigned a few demerits to, but we still passed your license because you're a good driver overall. Same thing. I can tell you a story about this. When I did my tractor trailer license in Australia to get my license back, I plowed into a roundabout. I didn't even slow down. I wasn't able, because I hadn't had any experience with roundabouts, and I just kind of plowed into the roundabout, and the examiner kind of like, whoa. But the driving examiner knew that I could drive the truck. I'd had enough experience. He knew that I could drive the truck. I could shift the gears and those types of things, but I needed some experience with roundabouts. I needed some experience with driving on the left side of the road. But in the end, he passed me and gave me back my tractor trailer license because he knew I could drive, but I needed some work, and he certainly gave that feedback to me when we were finished, okay? So that's a kind of a high-level overview of things that you need to do to take away the examiner's right to fail you on a road test, and what driving examiners do and why it can be a bit intimidating, because you've never met this person and all of a sudden they're assessing your ability to drive a vehicle. So good luck on your road test, and remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. All right, so we'll pop back over here, and if you have any questions about road tests, we can certainly answer all of those. Excuse me. Buttermilk. Slow down. Okay, well, the great thing, Buttermilk, about it being a video is that you can watch it again, and you can certainly ask me any questions about the presentation. If you missed something or you want clarification on something, I'm more than happy to go back over that, and if you have questions at the end, I'm more than happy to help you with those questions and whatnot. Zach from Virginia, going for my license. I start behind the wheel next week. I'm nervous. Yes, and that's great. And Zach, maybe you can get your parents to go out with you into a parking lot, and you can just kind of get used to the vehicle. You know, just drive down the parking lot and slam on the brakes and see what the response is on the brakes. Crank the steering wheel around and those types of things, and you can just kind of get used to the primary controls on the vehicle as well. Get used to where the vehicle is in space and place. Excuse me. Yes, and Jonathan, that is a good point. You have to demonstrate to the driving examiner to fully secure your vehicle when you park it, and that means applying the parking brake every time you park the vehicle. And on that note, with the parking brake, I'm just going to show you this video here, and this is one of the videos that I made for the YouTube stories, and this is just one of the things you can look at in terms of the YouTube stories on your mobile device, on your phone, and these are the little videos. And so this is one of the videos on applying the parking brake, because I've had people ask me this question a lot of times for the purposes of a road test. Yes, when you park the vehicle, reverse stall parking, parallel parking, hill parking, curb parking, anytime that you park the vehicle and you are simulating that you're going to leave the vehicle, you need to apply the parking brake regardless of whether it's a manual transmission or whether it's an automatic transmission. So I'll just play this video for you here real quick, and this is the parking brake video on stories. For the purposes of a road test and thereafter, apply the parking brake every time you park the vehicle. That way it'll be there when you get back. Apply and hold the foot brake, apply the parking brake, put the transmission into park, release the foot brake. For more information, smartdrivetest.com. Have a great day. All right, so back here, and I got a bit of a tickle in my throat. I'm sorry about that. If I didn't turn the mic off, I did try to turn the mic off there before I started coughing. So, take deep breaths. Yeah, not the end of the world if you fail. Exactly. So, Solomon, you're going to do just fine. Remember to breathe. Okay. Tim. AQH, you are most welcome. Happy to help that we can help out. That's really great. Read every sign. Yes, Douglas. And that's a great point in terms of road signs in and around the road test area where you're going to be taking your tests. practice in and around the road test area at the time that you're going to be taking your license test. For example, if you're going to be taking your test on a Thursday at 10:30 in the morning, practice during the weekdays at 10:30 in the morning. That way it's going to simulate the traffic as close as possible to when you're going to be taking your test. As well, you're going to become familiar with the road signs. And as well, what Douglas said here, with road signs, especially now in the summertime, you're going to need to be aware if there's any construction in and around the test center where you're going to be taking your test, because you're going to have the correct response to driving through construction zones. It's simply part and parcel of driving in the summertime that you're going to drive through construction areas. So you're going to need to know that as well for the purposes of passing your road test, how to deal with construction zones, how to drive through those safely. Okay? And again, the live stream is busy. There's lots of people on here. If you have a question that I don't get to or I don't answer, it's not that I'm ignoring you. It's simply I missed it. So just leave me another comment and I'll be more than happy to do that. As well, super chat's available. You can always leave me a super chat and I'll definitely get to your question if you give me a super chat. Okay, so you can do that as well. All right, Cody, Rick, can you clarify what the procedure is when you do an emergency stop? Saw the video, but it seems a little weird to put the car in park and put the handbrake on. No, Cody, when you're doing an emergency stop in the province of Ontario, they want you to pull over, activate your four-way stop, put the vehicle, if you're driving automatic transmission, which most of us are going to be in North America, put the vehicle into park and apply the parking brake, okay? It simply secures the vehicle against inadvertent movement, you know, that you didn't mean to, but if you have the parking brake on, the vehicle's not going to move. So that's what you want to do. Secure the vehicle on the edge of the road, the emergency vehicle goes by, release your parking brake and carry on. The other thing is, Cody, it's a good habit to get into to apply the parking brake every time you park the vehicle, because it's backup, right? It's like the movie Serenity at the end of the movie. Where's the backup? Where's the backup? The parking brake is the backup. The parking brake should actually be holding the vehicle, not the transmission. So the way that we put the parking brake on, hold the foot brake, apply the parking brake or pull it up in the center console, put the transmission into park or put it into gear if it's a manual transmission, then release the foot brake. That's the way that you apply the parking brake. And it's also going to guarantee that when you come back at the end of the day or the next day or a week later, your vehicle's still going to be in the same place that you left it if you apply the parking brake. It should be the brakes that are holding the vehicle, not the transmission. All right? The transmission is simply a backup to the parking so that you have a backup so that it doesn't fail. It's the same thing. Service brakes, the brake pedal on a hydraulic brake system on a passenger vehicle, it's got a backup. Okay? It's divided into two subsystems. So the front brakes are on a different system than the back system is. And if one system fails, the other one will continue to work normally. So you need a backup. So when you park the vehicle, get in the habit of using the parking brake every time. And for those of you going for a CDL license, driving a bus or driving a truck, you absolutely must apply the parking brake every time you leave the vehicle. It goes without saying. All right, and that's one of the kind of weird transitions, because I've been in big trucks with students who get out of the truck and they forget to put the parking brake on. You cannot get out of a big truck and not put the parking brake on. You have to do it. All right. Introvert, I'm now a master in parallel parking just on my car. That is awesome. All right, here we go. Courtney, I need to practice to learn how to parallel park. And yes, what I would suggest, Courtney, in terms of learning how to parallel park, go and rent some of those 36-inch, 1-meter tall pylons from the local rental shop and go down to the parking lot and do the slow speed maneuvers in the Learning to Drive video. That will help you out to do your parallel parking, okay? Because you want to start with the primary controls. You want to start with the steering wheel, the brake, and the throttle. Get used to that. You want to get used to where your vehicle is in space and place before you start parallel parking. That will make it a lot easier for you to learn how to parallel park once you know how to use the primary controls, what they feel like, what the response is, and where your vehicle is in space and place. And as well, if you get some of those 36-inch, 1 meter tall pylons and you go into the parking lot and you drive into them, you hit it with the wing mirror on the passenger side, you hit it with the wing mirror on the driver's side, you back into it, you drive into it, and Corey will put the video up for you on hit the cones. All of that will teach you where your vehicle is in space and place, and it will be a lot easier to learn parallel parking after you do those exercises, okay? So do that. All right, running. I've heard of people driving to specific drive test centers because they are better and have better pass-fail percentages. Are the centers different enough to drive to one outside of your local area? Running, I know that people do that, and I mean, it sometimes yes, sometimes no. But know that if you go to a driving center, and this is a point that I need to give you because I've confirmed this information with Sam, who works at Rookie Auto Driving School there in the Bronx, that if you go to a driving test center and you are not successful on your road test, when you go back the next time to take your road test, you will not be with the same examiner. Okay? You will be with a different examiner. 99% of the time. It's very unlikely that if you go to a test center after you failed your road test that you will be with the same examiner. I've never taken a student down who's been unsuccessful on a road test and had the same examiner twice, or 3 times, or 4 times, okay? You're always going to have a different examiner every time you go down for your test. And whether one test center is easier than another, I think that's just rhetoric. I think that's just students just talking and saying, oh, this test center is really hard because they weren't successful or those types of things. I personally think that if you are unsuccessful, just go back to the same place, walk in with your head held high and say, listen, I came to get my license, okay? And I am going to take away your right to fail me. I don't care what you do. I'm going to pass, right? Because if you got the passing attitude, you're going to pass. If you do everything right, you do the work, you work with your mentors, you go to the parking lot, and you do what you need to do, and you put in the work, you put in the time, remember, luck favors the prepared. It's those people that do the work. And I'll tell you, CDL people, I have seen people come in and they've been unsuccessful and they come out and they've done the work, whether it's pre-trip inspection, backing, turning, those types of things. And, you know, some years ago I was working with a student at the driving center, or at the road test, and he was really good. He was out of hours. He'd finished, and I said to him, I said, listen, you are ready for your road test. Everything is awesome. I said, but you can't back up. You can't back up the truck. I said, you need to get that piece down. And fortunately, at the truck driving school where I worked, it was in a closed circuit area, and they had an old junker there that they had a trailer on, and the students could come in and book this truck on the weekends, and they could come in and practice on their own, backing up and those types of things. And I said to the student rather, I said, listen, the truck's there. Go book the truck. Come in on the weekends, practice your backing up. And I said, we'll postpone your road test for a week, and we'll go and do your road test. Sure enough, a week later, came back. We went out for a little practice drive before his test. Everything was great. Went to do the backup. Boom, nailed it. He did the work that he needed to do to pass his road test. And it's the same thing with you going into a test center. If you're unsuccessful at that test center, excuse me. If you're unsuccessful at a test center, do the work. Practice the maneuvers, the skills that made you unsuccessful in your road test, and come back and say to them, I'm here to pass my road test, okay? You don't need to drive somewhere else. You don't need to hide. Know that you're going to pass, okay? There you go. Okay. 380, is French also permissible for driving exams at West, or does it have to be English? French is permissible. Are there different examiners, or are they required to be bilingual? That's funny. 380, we live in a English bilingual country, but yes, we do have French out here, and actually both my kids speak French fairly well. Yeah, we do have people here that can speak French, and you can take it in French. It's a federal requirement. So yeah, we do have it. Timber, I have a question. If you come to an intersection that doesn't have a stop sign on your street, but there are stop signs for the traffic on the intersecting street, do you come to a complete stop? No, you don't. If there's not a stop sign and you have the right of way, you don't even slow down. You know, you scan the intersection. If you see a hazard, like another vehicle or another road user that's approaching, then you cover the brake, but you don't stop. that will cause you to lose points in the eyes of the examiner, because they're like, what are you doing? You got the right of way. Go. Okay, so no, unless it's a controlled intersection, and there's another video that may still be on the stories there about what a controlled intersection is. Only slow down. I'll only take action if it's a controlled intersection. All right. There you go. Thanks, Tim. Excellent. Okay. 380. If you don't apply the parking brake when leaving the truck, I will guarantee that it won't be there when you get back, and be somewhere far more entertaining. Yes, it will. And there's a video here. There's actually a full video on the channel about parking brakes, and that's what happened to one of the truck drivers. He was in a truck stop, didn't apply the parking brake, and they're towing it out of the ditch because the truck simply rolled away. So, for those of you going for a CDL license in a bus or truck, that's one of the transitions that you need to come to, is that every time you get out of that vehicle, apply those parking brakes, okay? And it's not just for manual transmissions, it's also for automatic transmissions. Get in the habit of applying that goofy parking brake every time, okay? Oh, okay, so Cody, that's excellent. Okay, so you apply the parking brake every time. Yeah, so emergency stops, apply the parking brake as well. It's just one of those things. It's just another one of those little things. You know, it's like I say to people, learning something, learning anything is not difficult. It's just 4,728 little things in a particular sequence, right? And it's the same thing with driving a car, learning how to pass a road test, learning how to drive well, learning to be a smart driver. It's a whole bunch of little things that add up and make you look good overall. Applying the parking brake when you do an emergency stop is another one of those little details that the examiner's going to go, oh, excellent, well done. You know, a couple of years ago, I was working with a student, and you know, he was keen and he was smart. He was on the ball. He was doing what he needed to be doing, and he was driving truck. And I thought, okay, you know, and you know, you get bored as a driving instructor, so you kind of play with your students a little bit. You kind of test them. And so we're driving, and we had some couple of steep hills here in Vernon. So I took him up one of the steep hills, and we're heading up the hill, and I knew he's gonna have to downshift, and I'm like, yeah, he's gonna miss this, because 98% of students did, because it takes some time to learn how to drive a truck. And he got halfway up that hill, and the engine bogged down. And sure enough, he dropped that thing out of there, and he dropped 2 gears, which is exactly what he needed to do, was to drop 2 gears, not just downshift 1 gear. He needed to drop down 2 gears. Dropped down 2 gears, boom, went up over the top of the hill, and I just looked at him and went, good job. Good job. And, you know, it's nice when you see students who do that, right? Who are able to catch on. And, you know, Cody, you're gonna get the same reaction from a driving examiner when you do an emergency stop and you put the vehicle in the park, you pop on the parking brake. They're gonna go, good job, right? They're gonna give you thumbs up. So do that. Okay. Yes. Okay. And the other thing, Cody, about finding the signs in and around the area where you're working, where you're taking your road test, you know, that's the other thing is that lots of students think that it's difficult to kind of figure out where the test areas are in and around the test center. You don't have to follow the driving examiner cars, the road test cars, and those types of things. Just know that in large metropolitan areas, New York City, Philadelphia, places like that, the road test is only 8 to 10 minutes. So you drive out 4 minutes from the test center and you come back 4 minutes. That's all it is. Some test centers are going to do some of the slow speed maneuvers in and around the test center. So in Ottawa on Walkley Street there where they do the test center, they have a closed area there in a parking lot where they do the parallel parking. And you can figure that out fairly quickly. And this is the other thing that I suggest to students, and I encourage you strongly. If you do not take driver training for the purposes of preparing for your road test, 7 to 10 days before you actually go down for your road test, book a practice driving test with a local driving school and go out with an examiner and do a practice driving test. It's inexpensive. I know for Sam there at Rookie Auto Driving School, they only charge about $25. And they will give you feedback on the specific skills that you need to strengthen to be successful on your road test. As well, the driving examiners will take you on the exact routes that you're going to go on for the purposes of passing your road test. So it's money well spent, and it's excellent return on investment. So if you haven't taken driver training, you just rely on the information here on YouTube and on the internet and on my channel here at Smart Drive Test. Make sure you book a practice driving test, and you're going to need to book this a couple of weeks out, because you're gonna want to do it 7 to 10 days. So when they give you feedback on things that need to be strengthened, you have some time to practice and to fix those up. So know that as well. Okay. Timber, thanks so much for the answers. You're most welcome. Was kind of confused about it. Excellent. Courtney, what do you do when driving in bad storms? Okay, so Courtney, it's probably not something you're going to have to worry about for the purposes of your road test. But Courtney, what I would suggest to you, maybe not right now while you're working on practicing your road test, but I have a defensive driving course over at the Smart Drive Test website. Corey will put that up for you. The defensive driving course will give you driving in bad weather, driving at night, driving in winter, all of those tips and strategies that will help you to drive in inclement weather. Okay? And I strongly recommend that you take that course. And again, you can get 30% off. If you use the coupon code SMART30, you can get 30% off that course. And I would recommend that for anybody who wants to do some professional driver training to upgrade their skills. It's a great course. It'll probably take you about 5 or 6 hours to finish the course. It's, I put it together, and it will help you to drive in inclement weather, drive at night, and give you skills and strategies and techniques that will keep you and your family safe. So check that out as well over at the Smart Drive Test website. All right. Jeffrey, you failed your road test. Sorry to hear about your unsuccessful attempt. Jeffrey, did they give you some feedback about why you weren't successful on your road test? Okay. Jonathan, I remembered when I passed my road test after he gave me the passing paper. When he asked me if I had any questions, I actually high-fived him when he asked me this before he left the vehicle. Excellent. Yeah, and driving examiners want to see you succeed. We all, most of us who are fairly normal, we want to help other people be successful. And it's the same thing with road tests. We want to help people be successful on their road test, right? So, driving examiners will help you out. They will, do the best they can. And, I've been in tests and I've seen driving examiners try and encourage the student a little bit. It's like, is there something else that you need to say? Is there something else you need to do, right? So they'll kind of hint. They're not going to tell you that you missed something, but they're kind of going to push you a little bit and say, is there one more thing that you need to do? For example, what we're talking about, which has kind of been the running theme through this, about applying the parking brake. Maybe that's what you needed to do, is apply the parking brake. And they're kind of saying, hey, I'm not really telling you that, but, put the parking brake on and you'll be good. Okay? So, Jeffrey, you were unsuccessful because of parking. Yeah, don't give up. Keep practicing. Take it again. And, Jeffrey, do the exercises in the Learn to Drive video with the pylons, the 36-inch meter, 1 meter tall pylons. Those will teach you control of, give you mastery of the primary controls and teach you where your vehicle is in space and place, okay? I kept pulling out. I was nervous. Okay, so, Jeffrey, it's not unusual for students to be nervous on a road test, and don't beat yourself up because you got nervous, okay? We all get nervous, but it's just a bit more practice. And remember, when we're on tests, when we're under stress, we do what we practice. So practice, practice, practice. Take every opportunity you can to practice, to go down to the parking lot, work with those 1 meter tall pylons, and all of that will get you ready to get going. Okay, so there we go. Okay, yes, an introvert, practice. We do what we practice. So the more you do it, the more comfortable you become with the vehicle, the more familiar you are with it. You know where it is in space and place. It makes it easier to curb park and those types of things. And also know, for the purposes of a road test, you're going to have to curb park. And what I suggest to students, and I may redo that video on curb parking, is that it's really difficult to park along a curb, because a curb is only 6 to 8 inches high, 6 inches in most cases. So it's easier to practice with those 36-inch tall pylons and get used to driving along those rather than trying to just come up along a curb that you can't actually see over on the passenger side. Because keep in mind as well, on a passenger vehicle, the other side of the vehicle over there, that's your second biggest blind spot. And it's probably going to be about 15 feet to what you can actually see outside of that vehicle. And have a look at the blind spot video. Corey will put that up for you as well. All right, so that as well is going to give you some challenges. So again, you want to know where your vehicle is in space and place. And I believe Cody asked me, and I was going to talk about this, and now I'll talk about this. What are some of the reasons that you're going to fail when you're reversing? One of the reasons that you're going to fail for reversing a vehicle is not looking before you put the vehicle in motion. If you just put the vehicle in motion and you start moving it back a little bit and you don't actually look, then you're not going to be successful. And the other thing I suggest with students is for every vehicle length, pause, stop the vehicle, do a 360-degree scan, and then continue to back up. But for most people, most drivers on a road test, you're not going to back up more than one and a half vehicle lengths when you're backing up. So know that for the purposes of a road test. Okay, Singh, coming from India, having 15 years experience, but still nervous driving in Canada. Yes, and that's not unusual, Singh. I mean, you know, even though I had lots of driving experience when I went to Australia, and I was driving on the left, I had little, if no, experience with roundabouts. So it took me quite a bit of time to kind of become familiar, to be more comfortable with driving on the other side of the road and those types of things. I mean, it can be similar, but it's not similar, right? It's, you know, everything's relative. But you're in a strange environment. The road signs are a bit different. The people drive. The culture is different. The vehicles are different. So there's a lot of things that are kind of putting you off. So, you know, just take your time, and the more practice you have, the easier it's going to get. All right, Courtney, how do you know when to proceed through an intersection when other cars are also proceeding through the intersection? Courtney, I'm not quite understanding the question about when to proceed through the intersection. So what kind of intersection are you talking about? Are you talking about at traffic lights or at stop signs, four-way stop signs, those types of things? Because all of those are going to be a little bit different, right? And one of the other things, and this is something that a lot of driving instructors don't encourage students to do, but if you're not certain or unfamiliar with how to proceed through a four-way stop sign, for example, when it's busy, or you're not familiar with how to proceed through a two-way stop sign, go down and sit at the intersection for 15 or 20 minutes and watch how the traffic moves through the intersection. That way, you can watch the other traffic and go, okay, that person is doing it right, that person's not doing it right, this person is or not. Because know that when you go for your road test, passing a road test is a very different animal than learning how to drive. After you get your license, you're going to drive very different than you do for the purposes of passing a road test. Those two things are very different, so know that. So again, if you're unfamiliar, Courtney, just go down to the intersection and stand there for 15 or 20 minutes and watch the traffic. I mean, take a lawn chair too. You know, you might as well be comfortable while you're there watching the traffic and learning how to do it. And I mean, four-way stop signs can be a bit intimidating, so know that. Okay, so go down and just watch how the other traffic moves through it. All right, Mads, that's interesting because a lot of other YouTube channels say that you have to use it every time you come to a stop. Maybe that's more of a UK thing. Mads, yes, definitely a UK thing. If you come to a stop and you have to apply the parking brake, that is definitely part of the driving culture in the UK. And I can remember the first time I saw that, I was in Scotland. And every time he stopped at an intersection, the taxi driver would put the parking brake on. I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. So, yes, it is very much part of UK driving culture that you put the parking brake on every time you stop. Okay, and 09, I am doing well. Yourself? Maria's here. My test is tomorrow. I'm feeling pretty confident but nervous. But my biggest weakness is left turns on busy intersections. All right, excellent. Maria, I mean, that's great. You know that you have that bit of trepidation about left-hand turns, but know that, you know, left-hand turns at complex intersections, you're only probably going to have to do one or two of them, depending on where you are taking your road test, obviously. I mean, if you're in New York City, it might be more than one or two, but 3 or 4 at the most for the purposes of a road test. So know that you're not going to have to do very many. And this is the other thing that I'll say about taking a road test with a driving examiner. You only have to hold it together for 20 minutes, right? You only have to do it well for about 20 minutes. And then you're all done. The test is over. So know that. Yes, that you know that you're not really that strong in left-hand turns, but you're not going to have to do that many. But do the procedures that you need to do. Put your front steer tires in the front crosswalk line. When you see the gap coming, or go on the advanced green, move out into the intersection, meet the gap, make the turn into left to left, and then move over to the right-hand lane doing all of that, and you're going to be just fine on your road test. So make sure you stop back and let us know how you do. June, observing others' good driving habits is also a good teacher. Compare what you see to what you have learned from your instructors to get better. Yes, excellent. Very good, June. And, and I do the same thing. I put a video up about failing in 30 seconds with the cement truck driver, and Corey will get that video for you. I mean, watching somebody else and you're like, oh my God, that guy's terrible. And, he or she would not have been successful on a road test had he or she been on a road test. So know that you can learn how to drive well and improve your own driving by watching other people do it. Okay? So there you go. Maria, you're in Regina. Thank you so much. I'm glad we can help out. Yeah, and Maria, if you're in Regina, you're probably only going to do maybe 2 or 3 left-hand turns at most, and then the test is over and you'll be done and you'll have your license and away you go, right? So you're going to be great. You're going to be great. All right. So make sure, and as well, Maria, if you're taking either a driving school car or you're taking your own vehicle, make sure you do a pre-trip inspection, because it doesn't matter where you are in North America, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, when you go down for a road test, and this is the reason I encourage students to do a pre-trip inspection, wash your vehicle, give it a vacuum, those types of things. The first thing that driving examiners are going to do is they're going to do a mini pre-trip inspection. They're going to check the lights. If it's raining out, they're going to check the windshield wipers. They're going to check the seat belt. They're going to make sure that the glass isn't cracked. They're going to make sure that the license plates are on the vehicle and those types of things. They're going to do a mini pre-trip inspection. If something isn't working, for example, there's a brake light out, you are going to be denied your road test. You're not going to fail your road test, but you're not going to be able to go out on your road test because the vehicle is not safe. Right? If you have a brake light out, it's not safe, and the driving examiner will not go out with you. And unfortunately, here in British Columbia, I've been at test centers, and the student has borrowed a car from their aunt or uncle who was in Alberta. Well, in Alberta, they don't have to have front license plates. Here in British Columbia, you're required to have a front license plate, and if the car is from Alberta, it doesn't have a front license plate on it, the examiner will deny you the road test. So make sure that you've got all the stuff in place to be successful and not be denied your road test. Okay, Epic, failed all 3 my road test attempts due to nervousness and pressure. Test instructors, some of them can give you trick questions. Was told to back up to the pole. Yes, sometimes they will, but not very often, Epic, unfortunately. Okay, sorry to hear about your unsuccessful attempts. 380, if you could please do a presentation on off tracking. I pulled 53s on day cabs and sleepers, but I have my double triples. Our company doesn't have them. 53s versus double pups versus super Bs. Thanks. Actually, interesting enough, 380, you're going to have more off tracking on a 53-foot van than you will on 2 trailers, because on 2 trailers you've got 2 pivot points as opposed to only 1 pivot point on 53-foot trailers. So you're going to have more off tracking, but I can definitely do a little bit of information on off tracking for you and give you a bit more information for that. And this will work out as well, not just for CDL drivers, but also for those of you who are going to be pulling trailers and those types of things, that you need to compensate for the off tracking so you don't sideswipe other vehicles or sideswipe fixed objects while you're driving, especially now that we're into summertime and people are pulling caravans and boats and other recreational vehicles and whatnot. So that'll help you out. Okay, so Mads, you're there from Denmark, so they do that in Denmark as well, not just in the UK. Okay, Justice, will you be denied your road test if your handbrake isn't working? Yes, if your parking brake is not working, and they find out that it's not working, because they're not going to test it, but they are going to know when you park the vehicle and it's not holding the vehicle. So Justice, if your parking brake's not working, I would get it fixed before you get down for the road test, or find another vehicle to take down for your road test, okay? Mads, passed almost 3 years ago. I find it interesting to watch these videos sometimes. By the way, how do you highlight my name like that? I tried to use this @ but it didn't work. Mads, don't I'm not sure about that part, the highlighting part. Okay, Michael, you should do a video on driving at night while it's raining. Yes, I should, Michael, and I've been waiting for the right opportunity for it to both be raining and at night. So I should have done one. I was driving down to the coast, going to Vancouver Island there some months ago, and I mean, it was pouring rain. I don't turn the windshield wipers on high very often, but this one time I did have the windshield wipers on high, and I should have been doing it at that point. Okay, 380. So more of a follow the leader than with a 53 with triples. Much appreciated. Oh, you're most welcome. Yeah, and yeah, it's interesting watching people who have spent most of their career driving Super Bs or driving A trains, and then they get into driving a 53 foot and don't realize that the off tracking is a lot more, and they're always pulling it up over the curb and those types of things. Okay. Mads, I wasn't taught to use the handbrake every time I stopped, only when parking. I only used it on steep hills, whereas on small hills I just switch quickly from brake to accelerate, not too hard. Yeah, so that's basically what we do here as well, Mads. But if you watch some of the UK videos on how to drive and driving instructors and those types of things, you'll notice that every time they stop the vehicle at the intersection, they apply the parking brake on. And it's part of their driving culture, right? It's the same thing. Another example, rather, would be, some people do a hill start using the handbrake, and others just, as you said, they let the clutch out to the friction point, hold the vehicle with the clutch, and then move their foot from the brake to the throttle. So there's just different ways of doing it, and it's just part of driving cultures in different places in the world. Okay, George, I feel 4 times because I'm nervous. Yeah, George, probably what I would suggest you is to maybe take a couple of lessons with a driving instructor, and they can help you overcome that nervousness and whatnot. The other thing for students who are working towards a road test, if you are nervous, because as I said, it's intimidating when you get into the car with the driving examiner because you're in the car with somebody you've never met before. So one of the ways that you can train yourself to sort of overcome that nervousness is to drive with a lot of different people, right? Drive with your mom, drive with your uncle, drive with the neighbor, drive with a lot of different people, and then that way you're going to get you're going to become familiar with driving with people who are some people are going to talk to you, some people aren't going to talk to you, some people are going to snarl at you, some people are going to growl, right? Some people are going to yell at you. You need all of that pressure to be able to overcome the test. And when I taught in the vehicle and I taught truck driving and I taught cars, I would have a distracted driving lesson where I was kind of an ogre and I would talk the whole time, the whole lesson. I would tell jokes, I would yell, I would do all kinds of funny things. I would drink coffee to distract the driver, because I used to say to my students, if you can get past me, then you're going to pass your road test without any problems at all, because I'm a lot tougher on students than a driving examiner will ever be. And when students say this to me, that they're nervous, they failed because their nerves got the best of them, well, you need to find a driving instructor who's an ogre, because if you can deal with that driving instructor who's an ogre, your driving exam is going to be a piece of cake. So know that, okay? All right. Goldfish, how to determine whether or not to make a drive like from a road to a compound. Okay, don't understand the question, Goldfish. Maybe you can reword that for me. Okay, UPS drivers do the same thing. Yes, use handbrakes. Okay. Mads, by the way, yes, I was taught in a manual transmission car, and pretty much everyone drives a lot of manuals in Denmark. Yes, and that's the thing, Mads, that I tell people here in North America. Here in North America, it's kind of 15%. 85% of people drive automatics. 15% of people drive manual transmissions. But in Europe, in the Scandinavian countries, in Denmark and other places, it's opposite. It's 85% manual transmissions and 15% of people drive automatics. So I still encourage everybody to be able to learn how to drive a manual transmission, because if you go to other places in the world and you rent a vehicle, you're probably going to get a manual transmission, especially if you're in Europe. All right, we're wrapping up here. We're getting near the end here. Excellent. Okay, so excellent. Introvert. In Germany, you have to take many tests, including psychological tests. If you fail any of them, but the license validation is a lifetime. Yes. And from what I've heard and what I've gathered about getting a license in Germany, in the country of Germany, it's probably the toughest place in the world to get a license. It's the most rigorous. The tests, the amount of training that you have to take. Germany is definitely one of the tougher places in the world where you have to get a license. Okay. There we go. There we go. Yes, definitely. Okay. All right, so Goldfish, I'm going to make a right turn into the grocery compound. I have issues with timing cars coming from the right lane. We drive on the left. Okay, so you're having difficulty judging the gap. So know that if you're making a right-hand turn, you're probably going to need approximately 6 seconds. So again, what I would suggest to you, Goldfish, go down to an intersection, go down to a highway, look at a vehicle that's off in the distance, and then count 1001, 1002, 1003, and determine how far that vehicle is away from you in seconds, and then that way you can start determining gap. Know that for a left-hand turn at a complex intersection, you're probably going to need anywhere from 10 to 15 seconds to execute that turn. On a right-hand turn, you're going to need sort of 6 to 8 seconds to make that right-hand turn. So what you need to do is you need to go down and you need to practice counting how long it takes for cars to get to you and determining the gap, and that way you're going to be able to do that better. So that's what you're going to be able to do. All right. So Tim, next video, I got a video on the back burner here about making turns and moving left lane to left lane on multi-lane roads and those types of things. So Wednesday. The other thing, Tim, is make sure you check out stories on the YouTube app, because I'm putting those up as well, and those are those short 15-second videos, and those will be linked to the longer videos and sort of feed you in, because this is something that was requested, is that I do shorter videos and link them to the longer videos for people that wanted kind of refresher information, those types of things. So that's what I'm working with the YouTube stories and the Instagram videos, the little short videos. All right, so we're going to leave it there. We're at the end of the video. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, leave us a comment. Everybody hit that thumbs up before you leave here. And if you got a road test coming up in the next week, good luck on that. If you passed a road test in the last week or so, congratulations on that. And remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Have a great day. Thanks so much. Bye now.